The Russia-Ukraine war continues to occupy the world agenda. The second summer season of the war is about to begin. With the start of the summer season, we expect that the front line will be more active than in the past days. The positive effect of the warming weather on the geographical conditions in the region will also be reflected on the front line. With the maturation of geographical conditions, there will be no obstacle for Ukraine's counteroffensive. The most important obstacle for Ukraine to launch a counteroffensive at the moment is the impact of the seasonal conditions on the terrain. Much of the terrain in this region is currently muddy. Although this is not a major problem for infantry soldiers, it is very important for the delivery of armored vehicles. The level of weather conditions in the summer will harden the muddy soil. Then, the Ukrainian counteroffensive will begin in full force. Even if Ukraine does not launch a counteroffensive, it is trying to ensure that Russia cannot resist a counteroffensive by hitting strategic points belonging to the Russian army behind the front line. At many points, the Russian army is suffering heavy losses. Of course, the attacks are not limited to the occupied Ukrainian territories. Many points within Russia's borders are also under heavy pressure from Ukrainian troops. Let's examine the latest developments on the map together. Let's start today's report from Polohy in Zaporizhia Oblast. The 503rd Mechanized Brigade of the Russian Army is stationed here. In addition, many of the ammunition needed by the Russian troops on the front line are sorted in warehouses in this region. This area is approximately 15 kilometers away from the hot line of conflict. Therefore, this ammunition can be delivered to the Russian army in short time. In recent days, Rogov, the head of the Russian occupation force in the region, made a statement about the new developments in Polohy. According to Rogov's statements, there were explosions at many points in Polohy. Among the points where explosions took place are the mentioned warehouses. Local sources state that the damage in the warehouses is heavy.
When we look at the Crimean Peninsula, we see that there is a small movement in the region. Sevastopol, a port city, has been frequently mentioned in the reports of local sources in recent days. According to the latest data, clashes are taking place in many parts of Sevastopol. However, we do not yet have any idea on who is involved in these clashes. Our sources in the region claim that partisan groups from the Crimean Peninsula are attacking checkpoints and outposts of the Russian occupiers in the region. Turning our eyes towards Kherson, we see that Russian defense preparation in region continues. According to the latest reports, we can state that the Russian troops are building defensive fortification in the region on the eastern side of Kherson. After the military activity in and around Aleshki, it is possible to say that the region has been relatively quiet in recent days. In order for the Russian defense lines in this region to be built, the Ukrainian troops on the opposite side of the river need to be occupied. In this context, the Russian army is trying to carry out attacks by regularly sending unmanned aerial vehicles to the region. However, the Ukrainian army, which has gained a great deal of experience in destroying unmanned aerial vehicles as well as using them, destroys them drones. In recent days, the Russian army has sent 32 Iranian-made Shahed drones to the region. However, the Ukrainian defense forces managed to shoot them down, all the drones, in just one day. When we look at Mariupol, another important point, we see that the explosions wave that has been going on for a long time continues unabated. According to the information we have obtained from original sources, the Ukrainian army continues to hit many Russian military bases in and around the city with Shadow Storm missiles. According to the latest data, Ukraine has fired Shadow Storm missiles at Mariupol 486 times since adding them to its inventory. Although these missiles were sometimes neutralized by the Russian air defense system, they mostly managed to hit the target. When we look at Bakhmut line, the silence in the city center is expected to continue. While city prevails on the center line, Ukrainian army units continue to advance on the flanks. The IDOR special team of the 24th Separate Assault Brigade, which operates the Bakhmut line, continues its advance within the Russian positions on the flanks. We expect the Bakhmut line to become more active in coming days. because the gap that will be created by Wagner's withdrawal from the center will provide an advantage for the Ukrainian army to the center city. Now let's take a look at the developments inside Russia. Krasnodar in southeastern Ukraine continues to be hit by the Ukrainian unmanned aerial vehicles. The Ilsky oil refinery in the region was recently hit by a kamikaze drone. This region is almost the energy center of Russia. There are many oil refineries and natural gas depots in the city. Russia, whose most important source of income is natural gas and oil, faces billions of dollars in losses as a result of these attacks. Turning north, we see that the Belgrade line remains a danger for Russia. It is possible to say that there is an increasing unmanned aerial vehicle activity behind the front line as well as at every point of the front. According to local reports, 268 unmanned aerial vehicles were detected in Belgrade in just one day. One of these unmanned aerial vehicles hit Factory number 1 in Permyakos in Belgrade Oblast. The material lost at the factory is estimated to be quite large. Moscow, the capital of Russia, has been experiencing an invasion in recent days. As you can see on the map, Moscow is so far away from Ukraine. However, the increasing unmanned aerial vehicle activity in the city brings to mind the claims that Ukrainian intelligence officers have entered Russia and launched an attack. Especially in recent days, we are facing an increasing unmanned aerial vehicle activity in Balashikha, a Moscow suburb. These unmanned aerial vehicles are targeting areas in Moscow where Russian elites and oligarchs usually reside. So there is a growing sense of panic in the city. Russian military experts who warned the Russian government about Belgrade, Kursk, and Bryansk have recently sparked a news debate. As you know, the Ukrainian army has achieved great success in Mariupol with the Storm Shadow missiles. Russian military experts are putting intense pressure on the Kremlin to increase the air defense system in Moscow. Because the Ukrainian army can hit the Russian capital Moscow with the Storm Shadow missiles with a range of 550 kilometers. These statements, made in a wake of increasing drone attacks in the capital, reveals that Russian experts are in a state of panic. These are the latest developments on the front line. As you can see, we are going through days when the war is quite calm. However, this calm will be a harbinger of an approaching storm. When the conditions are ripe, both armies may face a big fight. What do you think? When do you think the Ukrainian army will start its counteroffensive? Are the Ukrainian army's operations behind the front line enough to ensure victory? Do you think the Ukrainian army will attempt to strike Moscow? We care about your opinions. Please share them with us.